God, you guys, $5, right? Like, I'm having a brain fart. I can't do that. In today's video, I want to help you guys on a topic that I get questions about a lot and was definitely a head scratcher for me in the beginning, is how to price your products. Welcome back. My name's Caitlin. I make videos all about how to start and run your very own side hustle. I own my own side hustle called Fiorella Soapery, where I sell all the things you see behind me. If you're interested in my products or you want to see what I'm up to, you can check my website or you can follow me along on Instagram for updates on my everyday small business life. When pricing your goods, there really is no set formula. If there was a formula that we could all use, that would be great, but every industry is different, every item is different, even in the same industry. I don't use the same strategy for all of the products that I sell, even though they're all soap and cosmetics. So I think there's a lot of things to consider and a lot of things to get through. So let's get started. I'm gonna try and help you guys figure things out. The first thing is cost of goods sold. Now, this is a term that you're going to hear a lot, especially if you talk to somebody who is an accountant or doing taxes. Cost of goods sold is basically how much it costs you to create the item. Not only just the material costs, also the packaging around it, so the wrapper, any labels, and then any labor that goes into it. So you wanna make sure when you are pricing your goods that you're accounting for labor. Now, I make everything myself, so I don't actually hire anybody, but there could come a day where you might have to hire somebody and you don't wanna have your prices not reflect your labor costs. To get your cost of goods sold, I think the easiest way is to just create an Excel spreadsheet, and I list every single item that goes into each specific item. So a bar of soap, I list all of the ingredients and all of the amounts, and I calculate out what the cost for a batch is. Now, it depends on what you're making. Sometimes you could be making one item and that's easy, but for my purposes, I have things in batches of 20 to 70. So whatever you're making, figure out your batch size and list out all of your ingredients, and then list out how much each item costs, like a wrapper, label, all of that stuff. So you will get a total in the end at the bottom of how much a whole batch costs. That's the easiest way, and then that way you can divide how many units or items you've made in that batch by that total batch cost. Say, for instance, let's say that you have a batch of soap and it costs $100 to make that whole batch, from all of the ingredients to all of the wrappers and labels. You get 20 soaps out of that batch of 100, your cost per soap is $5. That is where you're going to start. That's your cost of the goods. Then you add in your labor. So how long does it take to make that batch? Let's say then you are going to pay somebody $20 an hour to make the soap. So you're adding that $20 in. So you're gonna add $1 for labor costs to each bar of soap because your batch makes 20. Basically at this point, your one item cost is $6. At $6, you break even. You don't make any profit. There's no room in there. So if you were to sell that bar of soap for $6, you wouldn't actually be making any profit and you would have a hard time growing your business. The next layer on top, once you've gotten your cost of goods sold, is if you have any overhead. If you are paying rent to a studio or you have a brick and mortar location that you're gonna pay rent to, you're gonna wanna add up all of that. Add up your rent, your utilities. Now that can start to get a little crazy. A great resource, if you are a soap maker, I hope you know about the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild, which is where I am a member and I also get my insurance through, and I go to their conference every year. They have a really cool price calculator where you can load in all of your cost of good materials, you can load in your overhead costs like your rent and utilities, and it will generate for you kind of an ideal cost. This is where it gets a little tricky for people. A term that is used quite often in any form of retail is markup, or margin, or mark on. When someone says, what's your margin or your markup, it means you have your cost of goods, so you have that cost of goods at $6. What are you gonna retail that for? And what's basically the percent of your profit? So for a margin, you have a $6 bar of soap, you're gonna sell it for 10. You're gonna have a $4 profit in there. Your percentage would be 40%. There are a lot of different ways to approach whether or not you think that's a good price or not. So that's gonna be the next thing we get into. now that you have figured out how much your item that you're making or selling costs, you want to figure out what is the best retail. If you plan on doing wholesale, I highly suggest building that into your pricing strategy, because you want to make sure that if you are going to do wholesale, it's profitable and worth it for you. Let's say that $6 bar of soap that you made, you retail for $12, you make $6. Well, if you retail it for $12, a wholesaler is also going to retail it for $12. They want to pay, typically it's called Keystone, but typically it's 50% less of what the retail value is. Your wholesale account is going to want to pay you $6. You're not going to be making any money. You're manufacturing soap for somebody else to make the profit. So if you want to consider doing wholesale, I highly suggest putting that into your strategy. Still don't really know where the retail should be. When I struggle with something like that, I always turn to something that a lot of people in retail do, and that's called competitive shopping. I comp shop other retailers, I comp shop other wholesale suppliers, I comp shop other handmade makers. I look everywhere. Or you are gonna take your item and figure out who is your competition. It could be a wide variety of people, all the way from a farmer's market to an actual retail store like an Anthropologie, and you want to figure out what all of those outlets are charging for your item. Now that you've armed yourself with some information around what the market typically sells your item for, you have your cost of goods sold, and now you can kind of figure out your retail and what's a healthy retail for you to make a good profit, but maybe also be able to sell wholesale and still make some money. The other piece that I want you to think about when it comes to pricing your goods is leaving enough room for sales and discounts. Because if you don't, then when you take something on a 50% off discount, you could be selling it below your cost, and then you're losing even more money. Let's say you figured out that the market for soap is anywhere between $6 and $10. If your cost of goods are $6 and you feel like 12 is the max that you can retail it at, what do you do next? Well, you could then reevaluate how to drive your costs down. There might be a certain area where you can buy in bulk. Also, price drop. I know that some people get loyal to some of their brands and suppliers, and I've found that sometimes I get really great deals from buying my sugar from BJ's. It's the same brand of sugar, it's Domino sugar. I make my sugar scrubs with it, and I can buy a 25-pound bag there for $13.99 versus buying granulated sugar from some of my other suppliers, and it's double that price. You can always change your prices. I've gone up in my prices. These whipped soaps, when I first started, I thought had to be $15. When I reran my numbers, I realized I wasn't making enough money, did a little bit more research, and decided to then increase them to $18 for the holiday season. Nobody noticed it, nobody said anything. And then I realized come spring that I should probably just charge what I should really be asking for them for the amount of time and effort it puts into making them. So they've been at $20 now for about a year and a half, and I'm happy with the performance of them, and my customers are still very happy too. I want it to be said, the lowest price doesn't always win. So if you think that your strategy is going to be, let me figure out what everybody else sells a bar of soap for and I'm gonna be the lowest, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're not gonna make enough money, and you're not gonna be happy with your results. So with all of that said, I hope I've given you a few tips and tricks to figure out how to best price your goods. The number one thing I want you to walk away with today is make sure that you are making money enough to make it worthwhile for you. Because as much as we love doing these as hobbies and side businesses, the whole point is to make money. So if you're not making enough money, you need to figure out either how to reduce your costs or increase your retail. All right, I hope I was helpful today, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and let me know. I'm on Instagram at Fiorella Soapery, and please make sure to subscribe and like this video. If you guys have burning questions or want a topic covered, please leave your comments down below. I will try to get to them and add it to the video list. But that's it for me today. Have an awesome day, guys. Bye. Oh my god, you guys, $5, right? Don't say that. Box, there's links. I'm like really good at math, but being in front of this camera makes me 9 by 20, $5. Yeah, 40. 40%.